I'd like to introduce our esteemed panel. Our esteemed panel will introduce themselves, actually, and Tina will join us later. But we got Veda Dean, Linda Jacobson, Seth Steinberg, and then Tina Choi. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, so we'll go from there.
Check. Hey, this thing is on. Hi, my name is Veda Dean. I found Aging 2.0 in Avenidas when I was helping a client in the smart home area for elderly, and I just really love what these guys are doing. From my side, I'm a informal home caregiver. I have an aunt and uncle who are more aging. My fiance's parents are very aging. And now my mom is getting in that area too. So this has been a big area of interest and a passion of mine. So great to be here with y'all.
Hi, I'm Linda Jacobson. I'm a baby boomer, and I believe in power to the people. I've always believed it's important for people like us to understand what emerging science and technology could do for our lives. So I've been helping people understand and adopt new technologies for many years. I am a founding editor of Wired magazine. I've written a lot of books. I was the first virtual reality evangelist in the virtual reality industry, and today I'm interested in bringing new technologies to help enhance the experience and perception of aging and aging services and brain fitness. And I'm really happy to be here. This is a great event.
Hey, my name is Seth Sternberg, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of a company called Honor. So I guess 3 or 4 years ago now, I got worried about my mother, and I fundamentally wanted to help my mother stay in her home as she aged. And I had a little bit of a weird background. I'd just 2 years earlier sold my previous company to Google, right over there. And so I was sitting at Google kind of trying to think about what I was going to do next anyhow. Got worried about my mother, and then I found the space of non-medical home care. And for those who don't know what non-medical home care is, it's where a personal care aide, what we call a care professional, goes into someone's home and helps them with activities of daily living. So things like getting out of bed or getting food or getting dressed. And it's a really meaningful space. I perceive that I would really need it for my mother, because if I want my mom to be able to stay at home in Connecticut and I live in California, then I would have to get her amazing home care. But I saw a lot of improvement that we could potentially make in home care. And so fast forward to today, our headquarters staff is about 200 people. In headquarters, they mostly work in San Francisco, and some of them are in the East Bay. We serve customers throughout San Francisco, LA, Dallas, and Albuquerque. We now partner as well with actually other home care companies and help other home care companies run their operations and provide really outstanding service to their customers as well. So while we're helping customers directly, we're also helping people who run agencies deliver better care as well. And I'm super, super excited to be here. So we are a classic Silicon Valley venture-backed company. We've, to date, we just announced that we raised another $50 million. So in total, we've raised $115 million. And when I raised the first money for Honor, very little of this actually existed. Like, there was just almost no really strong entrepreneurial activity in the space of just helping the elderly in general. And my real hope was that that would change. And in fact, I pulled the stat. So in 2014, 0.7%, 0.7% of all venture capital dollars went to goods and services for the elderly. And the elderly account for about 6 to 7% of GDP. So that's off by a factor of 10. So the more innovation, the more awesome product that comes out of here that entices venture capitalists to then put more money into investing into the space and helping the elderly, I think the better off society will be. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much, the Avenidas team, Amy and Eric, for putting this amazing tech conference together. Please, everybody, give them a hand. And thank you for inviting me. I'm Tina Choi. I'm very honored to be part of this amazing panel.
and amazing, I would say. I look forward to hearing from the 4 incredible startups that will be presenting to us. So a little bit about me. I spent 15 years at Apple launching our products on supply chain side and then also building out the services operational supply chain. And also love to invest and advise startups through Astia. And we are a women-led venture capitalist dedicated to women-led high-growth ventures. So at my core, I do a lot of work with diversity and inclusion. And I believe, for me, at my core, using the power of technology to empower everybody. So very similar vision to what Avenidas and Eric has in mind. And for me, I'm very, very passionate about the older generations. And I feel like for bigger company, a lot of times we don't focus on that sector. And I want to build a product that's something that my parents can use. So I just quit my job, and I'm a CEO, co-founder of Travande. And what we're doing is building local experiences for seniors and people with special needs. So if anybody want to talk to me about my mission and want to help, let me know. So thank you, Eric.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for the panel for volunteering their time. I'd like to introduce our first pitch. It's Dual Jet Marine. Stephen Short is the CEO of Dual Jet Marine and also serves on the board of directors for Good Life Mobility, a nonprofit focused on assisting all mobility challenged individuals and promoting a more active lifestyle for the mobility challenge. Stephen is a lifelong boater, a surfer, past champion, 140-mile-per-hour powerboat racer, and former U.S. Marine. Schooled and experienced in marketing and sales, his entrepreneurial career includes starting and selling 2 companies, including GetBoatGear.com, an early and tremendously successful online boating equipment retailer. Please give me a warm applause for Stephen Short.
I'm going to work right here if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Well, the first thing I want to do is point out that Veda and I probably have the 2 deepest voices in the room. And so if doo-wop music ever comes back, he and I are going to make a fortune. More than 15 million people ages 35 to 44 enjoy kayaking, canoeing, and other calm water outdoor activities. Sadly, as people move into the 45-plus age group, that number drops dramatically. In fact, it's less than half of that 15 million. Even though the 45-plus age group has become the single largest sector of our society. The largest reason for this decline is the onset of physical limitations, injuries, illnesses, and lack of physical strength, and so on. The implications of this are serious, including isolation and further deterioration, both physically and emotionally. We found literally dozens of studies out there pointing to isolation as a major cause of depression among aging baby boomers. According to the International Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences, though, it doesn't have to be that way. They say recreation plays a key role in the well-being of older adults and in enhancing their quality of life. Dual Jet Marine has developed, tested, and designed a low-cost, easy-to-use, feature-rich, and highly adaptable electric propulsion system that can be mounted on a wide range of kayaks, canoes, inflatables, and even the pink flamingo over here. We eliminate, yes, that's our starter set. We eliminate the difficult rowing and paddling, and using our patented electric dual thruster system, we make kayaking, canoeing, and other flat water activities not only possible, but effortless, fun, and yes, even a social activity. Dual Jet Marine is a group of highly successful entrepreneurs, engineers, financial, legal, and business people, all driven by a vision of engineering excellence to design, build, and market extremely beneficial and highly profitable products for an aging population. We're all about knocking down barriers to allow everyone the fun, excitement, and social interaction that come with being on the water and in the middle of the action, regardless of their age or physical capabilities. So, who's ready to set course with Dual Jet Marine? I heard an I'm in over there. All right. Any questions? No.
Sure. Hi, I actually was at your booth. Neil showed me your technology, and it's great that I think people like my son would use your kayak because he always complains, "Mom, I'm tired."
Yeah.
So it's not just the seniors.
That's absolutely true. We are all of us that are the major players at Dual Jet Marine are baby boomers, but we
Right.
also recognize the fact that the technology applies across the board.
Right.
And to prove that, we brought the Flamingo. We really do have the ability to power the Flamingo,
Right.
as well as everything up to and including the large inflatable kayak you see there.
So yeah, so one quick question is, do you manufacture these in China? Being a background in supply chain, just want to have to ask that.
No, everything is manufactured right here in the Bay Area.
How do you keep your unit cost down?
Because of the way we designed it, again, our engineers are design engineers. They've also gone through design for manufacturing.
Okay.
They understand exactly how to do all of this and keep the costs down. A lot of our parts we 3D print right here in our shop.
Okay, great, thank you.
What channels do you anticipate? Like, who are you actually selling to? Are you selling to a retailer? Are you selling, direct to consumer? And what are the channels that you think you'll?
Sure. We're still very early stage, and we kind of got our sequencing out of whack here. Tomorrow morning, we're doing final negotiations and expect to sign a contract to distribute pool toys like the Flamingo through a traditional retail channel. Our kayak business, canoe business, the systems can be adapted to virtually any kayak or canoe. That's going to be through kayak and canoe manufacturers as an add-on. Right now, most of the time what they do is they add on a trolling motor, right? Those little single propeller motors. And the problems with those are multiple. First of all, they stick down too far. They're kind of bulky. They don't mount on every kayak or canoe. And they have a big, large turning radius. If you want to move something in and make a turn, you have a large turning radius. I drive a 23-foot dual-engine jet boat, and I can turn that thing on a dime, literally with no radius. So the dual jets is a patent technology that we own the rights to, and our ability to create a much more maneuverable product is really attractive to these kayak manufacturers.
I love the idea of empowering people to get on the water because not only are you tackling the social isolation, but we all find great comfort in bodies of water. We all
Absolutely.
gravitate toward
Yep.
I just turn the faucet on in the kitchen sometimes. Stare. But I actually think that this would be great in a big swimming pool too. Is the product designed for anybody to stick on any Flamingo or kayak, or does it require mechanical expertise to do it?
No, there's not a lot of mechanical expertise required. We make different mounting systems depending on the curve of the bottom of the vessel, but we can adapt. It's a flexible mounting that uses a style of attachment tape so that it can be very adaptable to almost any bottom. Are you throwing me off?
Almost. I'm
I
waiting
get
for
thrown
Veda
out
to
of
give
a
you.
lot
I'm
worse
waiting for
places
Veda to
than
give you
this.
one more question.
Okay.
All right, I just have a real quick question to the audience. How many are here as potential buyers or consumers? And how many here are potential entrepreneurs? Okay, and then investors, advisors, consultants, that kind of thing. All right, cool. All right, so we're pretty much all over the place.
Sure.
So I didn't know which way I was going to go with my question. But the thing that you guys really show, I love your sense of humor and stuff, is you're really connecting me to fun. You know, for me personally, I ride motorcycles and I want to do that for a long time. So seeing that I can do something in the water for a lot longer is great. How do you guys see yourselves, staying ahead of people like the quadcopters and those kind of things? You know, to me, it seems like this is a really close adaptation of that.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I want to address the idea of fun. My wife says I have the ability to goof off at a higher level than most people think is possible and make money at it, which is amazing to her. But secondly, the idea of the technology, we are way out in front. What you're seeing here, in fact, is a wired control system. And that wired control system has directional tracking. In other words, if the wind blows you a little bit off course, it straightens you back out. we've already tested, designed, or developed, tested, and designed a system that has wireless control, forward, backward, left, right, cruise control, and it has GPS tracking capability. Okay, so it's all about innovation. It's all about staying out in front and staying relevant based on whatever it is that people want and need at that time.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
Thank
Round of
you.
applause. So I forgot to mention that we have this incredibly expensive award that's sitting on the table. So at the end, we're going to ask for applause for each of them and award the priceless award that's on the table to the best pitch. Next to the stage, we're going to have Felix Steinmeier, who is the co-founder and CEO of Mason Finance. Before starting at Mason, he worked as chief of staff at Aston Martin. I'm hoping that he got a car out of it. He holds an MS and an MBA from Stanford University, so please welcome Felix to the stage. I'll drive. Thanks. Let me just pull this over.
All right, this is like the shortest pitch I've ever done on this. It's like 1.5 to 2 minutes, so it's really crisp. I'm Felix, and I'm here to tell you about Mason Finance. It's an online retirement finance platform.
You have it right in front of you, too.
How do I? Yeah, so I was started by my roommate at Stanford, Charles, and myself. He left behind a lot of equity at the company he was working at, and I turned down a very lucrative hedge fund offer. And the reason is that today there are 20 million seniors in the US who are economically insecure. 20% of seniors are at or below the poverty line, and this is a picture that gets more and more grim as we move along. Now, Harvey is your cookie-cutter retiree. He's 78 years old and has a $180,000 life insurance policy, and he's just halfway into his retirement. Now, he only has about $30,000 of retirement income, and that's the average retirement income from somebody at his age. Next, this is pretty quick through the slides. So,
no problem.
His life insurance policy now costs about $4,000 to $8,000 a year to maintain, to pay in premiums, and it's clearly outside of his means. So he lapses it. When he lapses it, he loses all the money he's paid into it through his entire life, as well as all coverage. Had he been able to sell that policy, it would have been worth $40,000. Had he found an investor, he would have been able to sell that investor for $40,000. So he had a choice between $0 and $40,000, and for some reason he chose 0. Question is why? First, he didn't know he could sell it. Most Americans don't know that they own their life insurance policy, just like the house or car. It's your property. Second is that the solution that was invented to be able to sell your policy, known as a life settlement solution, is 30 years old, it's very cumbersome, and it's extremely expensive. It costs $90,000 on average today to be able to sell your policy, which means it's only possible for the top 2% of Americans, the 2 wealthiest percent, to sell their policy, that are those with life insurance policies of $1 million or above. What we're doing, and Harvey isn't by himself. Every year there are over 600,000 Harveys that lose $110 billion in life insurance that they should have sold. They got 0, and they should have gotten $110 billion had they been able to sell it. Now, what we're doing at Mason is the reason why the solution is so complicated is because it has agent, broker, and provider. It's a very complicated and expensive supply chain, essentially like an industry structure. We're going direct to consumer. You're just using technology to price the policy, to sell it online, much more efficient, much cheaper, which means now that Harvey, if he comes to us, can sell his policy. That's it. Yeah.
So basically, you have a marketplace that you're doing for the insurance policy. Is that correct?
Essentially, well, we're actually the ones
clearinghouse?
purchasing the policies, and then we're selling them off to investors. So investors don't want single policy; they want bundles. So we buy, bundle, and sell off.
So if I have my insurance policy, and let's say I wanted to use it currently for healthcare expenses, I could come to your service and
Yep.
sell it and do
That's one of the main drivers why people sell it. Is
All right.
that they need to pay for an unexpected medical expense. They don't have the cash, they don't want to sell their home, so they might just well sell their life insurance policy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you address your thoughts about the new product or service that allows folks to sell their life insurance policy and convert it into a payment plan for long-term care?
That's exactly what we want to do. So right now, these products are exactly where we want to go. Convert it into an annuity to turn something that you used to pay for into something that pays you for the rest of life, right? It's literally the reverse life insurance. That's a product we want to do. Right now, we're very focused on just being able to make it possible for people to sell them for lump sum. But to turn long-term care, spot on, exactly, yeah.
Have you launched? If so, kind of how much volume so far, and what are the channels you're looking for?
On June 1st, just like about 11 days ago, we got our California license and provider license, which means we're now licensed to actually transact in the state of California. And we have several customers in our funnel right now that we're speaking with about buying their policies and making it possible to sell them. One of them is only a $100,000 policy, which would have been impossible just until June 1st. Basically.
And how do you anticipate finding people who will want to sell you their policies?
So can you repeat that? I couldn't hear.
How do you anticipate finding people who will want to sell you their policies?
Online. So today there are 23 million seniors on Facebook. It's the fastest growing age segment across all channels. When I started looking into this, like 9 months ago, there were 16 million seniors on Facebook. Now there are 23 million. They're growing like at an incredible rate. There are 14 million seniors on Twitter. There are several 100,000 people searching for this every year. People know, they search, we find them online. Or they find us, ideally.
Hey, Felix, I have the same question as Seth. So your main channel would be through Facebook, ads to seniors? And then the next question is also, I notice your mission is that you want to sell honest financial products to people. What does that mean?
So one thing that we notice in the industry we're in is that when products are really opaque and difficult to understand, many players took advantage of that and offer 10% of what it's truly worth. It's great business, right? They try to buy it as low as they can, but we think that that's unfair. So one of the things that we ingrained in the company is a value that it's senior first, so we will not make a decision that we know is detrimental to senior. So we are going to pay much more than anybody else would pay for it, but we think it's the fair price, and it's still a great margin. It's not like we're, doing it for free, but it's a fair transaction, not a ripoff. Yeah, of course. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Everybody, warm applause. Thank you. All right, Jay, come on up. Jay's been a national journalist for more than 15 years, writing for Time Magazine and Bloomberg News. When her father moved to an assisted living facility, the staff asked her to fill out a 20-page questionnaire. Instead, she wrote down a story. His caregivers loved it, and Memory Well was born. Welcome, Jay.
I might just not do the slides.
You don't want to do slides?
Yeah, I think it's...
Go right ahead. We'll leave the picture of you up
I'm
there.
gonna wing it.
Wing it.
Hi, thanks so much, Eric, for having me here. And as he said, I'm Jay Newton-Small. I'm CEO and founder of Memory Well. We're a digital platform for senior storytelling. So how many people in the room have had to put a senior in care, into assisted living? Or so you guys know what it's like, right? It is a really hard experience. I had to do that to my dad, and it was really isolating. So they call them communities, but there's not a lot of community in the communities. And there's a lot of guilt associated with that. You don't know if they're going to be known and treated like the person you know and love. And so, and to make it worse, on average, you see 55% staff turnover annually in all of these communities. And so there's a ton of churn. And so they're constantly introducing themselves into new people, which is really hard if, like my dad, they have Alzheimer's. So my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was still a senior in college, and I became his primary caregiver for the last 5 years of his life in 2011. And a few years ago, I had to move him into a community, and when I did, they asked me to fill out, like as Eric said, this ridiculous 20-page questionnaire about his life. And I was a professional writer with Time Magazine, and I challenged anybody to answer some of those questions well, like describe your parents' 50-plus year marriage in 4 lines. So I was sitting there writing down these answers. And secondly, who's actually going to read and remember 20 pages of handwritten data points for like the 150 people there, right? Like nobody. So I handed in the form blank and I was like, look, I'm a writer. I think it's easier for me and easier for you if you just let me write down his story for you. And they were like, okay, you're weird, but sure. So I wrote down his story and I printed it out. It was 1 page, 2-sided, gave it to all of his caregivers, and I was like, this is my dad, because he really couldn't tell his story anymore. And they absolutely loved it. They remembered it, they told each other about it. 2 of his caregivers were Ethiopian, and they'd had no idea that he'd lived in Ethiopia for 4 years early on in his career with the United Nations. And they became his champions. They would sit for hours and show him their own personal family photos of Africa. And Dad loved it because he remembered Africa from his early 20s, even if he didn't often remember last week. So MemoryWell was born out of that experience. We now have a network of more than 500 writers across the country, and we work with assisted living facilities, continuing care retirement communities. We also work with home care agencies to replace some of those burdensome questionnaires that nobody loves to fill out and even fewer people read with professionally told stories that are simple, digestible, everyone gets it. We also have a digital platform where we host the stories and family members can upload their loved ones' favorite music and movies and arts and readings. So that way, whomever's sitting with them, whether it's a paid caregiver or a grandchild, they have a whole toolbox of things with which to engage that person. So we believe that this is a really great time to be moving into this market, as I think a lot of people have noted today, but particularly for healthcare and for storytelling, because in 2017, the Affordable Care Act mandated that the entire healthcare system move towards what they call value-based care, which means for the very first time, family and patient happiness is being taken into account when they do the formulas for Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, which means that across the spectrum of healthcare, from assisted living to hospitals, to hospice, all these different places, they have to prove that they're putting the person and not the diagnosis in the center of care. And so we believe that that represents a very large market opportunity for us, where we can potentially $2 billion annually just to do the stories alone. We also believe that there's potentially a huge direct-to-consumer market. Everybody has, as I was telling people today when who came by my booth, everyone has that loved one, right, who every Thanksgiving you think, man, I really need to collect their story. I need to get Grandpa's stories about World War II, or your great aunt Lucy's stories about living through the Great Depression. And we solve for that. Our writers will sit with the seniors, interview them, write down their stories, and you get to keep them and add to them and build to them. This has been a really interesting journey for me, and a very personal one, I think, because of my dad, who passed last year. But it's also really important to me I feel, to collect a lot of these stories. And this is a very non-digital generation, sorry, and that doesn't, my dog's every stupid pet trick is on Instagram for all eternity for everyone to see. But this is not a generation that collects a lot of these things. And so, as a journalist, as a writer, I love the idea of being able to collect those stories and keep them and save them for families for generations to come. So we are MemoryWell, and we are changing aging one story at a time.
Thank you, Jay, for doing this. I know that your story was so touched. When I heard that, I was so touched. Now, as far as on the business case, are there any other use case besides Alzheimer, home care, and also direct? Because I see a lot of opportunities for direct to consumers too.
Yeah, so we have just begun to explore direct-to-consumer. This is the first time I've ever done a direct-to-consumer event, frankly. We spent the first year really focusing on business-to-business partners, working with facilities and CCRCs. But we do think that our goal is to really tell as many senior stories as possible and become kind of like the 23andMe for storytelling, and really begin to get a portrait of this generation that nobody knows really, and that very few, they control 70% of our disposable income, but very few people actually really understand this generation. And so we believe that there is a great opportunity there, and that's something that we are looking to explore.
And right now it's only in the U.S. Is there a plan to expand?
It is only in the U.S. We had actually a lot of interest in expanding it into Europe in recent actually months, including one company that approached us and asked us to expand into Europe, and another in Australia. Europe is just tough because their privacy laws that just passed in May made it really complicated, and we were going to wait and see how those played out before we expanded into Europe, because that just looked just too complicated to deal with right now.
So if I'm a CCRC or a home care company, what very specifically am I buying from you?
Sure. So we interview seniors or their family members if they can't speak for themselves. We write a very brief story. So basically, you're buying from us that story. And the stories make for great marketing tools, to sort of distinguish you, show that you're person-centered, that you are, really going to know your residents, you're really going to know the people you're caring for, and so you're getting that story. And then we also have we allow families to build out a whole timeline. So the timeline aspect of it really becomes a very cool sort of. They can add in different. We send weekly engagement questions where we'll prompt caregivers or family members to sort of say, hey, what were you doing during the moon landing, or what was your first summer job, or who was the first person you kissed? All the different sort of stories that you don't realize that you want to know about, but then when you do, it creates this.
Phone interview, or how do you extract this?
So usually it's a phone interview. We have the 500 journalists we work with across the country, or everywhere though, and so a lot of them, and increasingly actually, have been in person, because there's been a real drive from a lot of the communities we work with to do these sort of in person, we do these kind of parties in the centers, and everybody comes and the journalists will interview the seniors, and it's sort of a fun intergenerational thing to do. And it also really helps, communities love it because they will put them up on walls, or they'll put them under shadow boxes, and so that way anyone coming in can read about the other people in the communities and get to know them, and that solves for a lot of the isolation problems, because I know that my dad had a best friend named Warren, and they would hang out all the time, and I would be like, hey, Warren, what's up? And he'd be like, hey, and I would ask staff, what's the deal with Warren? And they knew nothing about him. So if I knew more about Warren, I would have engaged with him, right? I would have hung out and been like, how are the Red Sox, Warren, whatever. So, so yeah, it just really, and then for home care, one of the usages that they use it for is helping better match caregivers and those they're caring for. So knowing that, for example, a woman had lived in Paris in her 20s, you might match her with Malian caregivers who speak French, and they might find that bond. So being able to understand that.
As a professional journalist for 40 years, I really admire and appreciate what you're doing. I've got two-part question, and one part is that I have seen several companies come into this space and try to do this as well. It's such an important gift to the community and to the families. So companies like Time Slips and Life Bio and such. I'm curious to hear just your couple of thoughts about how you're going to succeed where they weren't able to because of their business models, their revenue models. And I'm also curious about your HIPAA compliance and what you're doing to maintain the privacy of the families whom you're interviewing.
Sure. So two big questions. One, we're the only solution in the market right now that uses journalists to do this, right? So everything else is do it yourself, which gets us back to those awful questionnaires that nobody loves to fill out and even fewer people read, right? And so, Life Bio has been around for forever. I love Beth, she's great, but Brookdale Senior Living, which is the largest provider of senior care in America, just replaced Life Bio with MemoryWell for their 15 flagship communities in a paid pilot because they believe that they call us the missing piece. We're actually connecting properly residents and family members and staff in ways that handwritten workbooks do not, right? So that's what Life Bio does, are these handwritten workbooks which nobody reads and frankly few people fill out. With time slips, we're actually working with Anne, and we've talked a lot about partnering with them to tell these stories because they get around the edges of stories, but they don't actually collect stories themselves. And so we are, in that sense, a solution that we can fit into a lot of different pieces, whether it's electronic health records or whether it's hardware like It's Never Too Late or LifeLoop, or whether it's Independa, there's all these different sort of solutions that are out in the market. We like the idea of kind of fitting our stories into all these different solutions and finding ways to help connect people in different ways, right? And that's why we believe that we hopefully will succeed. We will succeed where others have failed. In terms of remind me of the second. Privacy. Okay, so all of our stories are set by default to private, and you have to ask to make it public. We do ask every family to sign a HIPAA waiver just in case, even though we don't include any medical information whatsoever. So there's no diagnoses, there's nothing on there that is medical, it's just their life story. And so, but we want to make sure that it's private, we want to make sure that, and that's something we found is really important to seniors, and why they don't put a lot on Facebook is because they don't love the networking aspect of it. They want it to just be limited to their little universe of people, and they know exactly who's seeing it and has access to it.
Who owns the rights to the stories?
We do. We are a typical journalism outlet. That said, we will always give the stories to families when they pass. We box them up in digitally, or we'll continue to host them if they want us to, and give it to them. We want them to feel ownership of their stories. We send the stories back to them for approval before we post them, which is something very non-journalistic. But it's their story. We want them to be happy with it. We want them to love it and feel like it represents them. So we try to encourage that feeling as much as possible.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, guys.
And for our last pitch of the day, I'd like to introduce Gene. Gene is an experienced entrepreneur, but I talk to him every now and then, or I talk to his staff, and I think he's actually more proud of the fact of his People Power Co. band than he is of the company. So Gene, come on up. And there's a YouTube search out there for it. Just take a look. They're really entertaining and really good.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Thanks. Hi, I'm Gene Wong. It's so great to be here. I just wanted to start out by reading you an email that I just received yesterday from the NIH program director from the National Institute on Aging. Dear Gene, thank you for sending me your dissemination plan. It gives me tremendous pleasure to inform you that with this plan now in hand, this allowed me to officially sign off on your NIA award just now for your R44 application, developing and evaluating in-home supportive technology for dementia caregivers. Melissa S. Gerald, PhD. And in my response email thanking Melissa, who I think is wonderful, I told her all about this wonderful Avenidas event tonight. And so I think it's very fitting that all of you are the first to hear this big news about this $4.8 million grant that will empower my company, People Power, to create a breakthrough service for caregivers and the people they love. And I'd like to invite you to join us on this exciting journey. And all you have to do is vote for People Power. See, I told you I'd ask. Yeah. And also email caretrial@peoplepowerco.com. So, we are actually building off of a very successful, we like to think of it as the smartest home service available today. It's commercially available for home security, but with People Power Care, we will build off of a system that already makes people feel safe and secure, but also will be able to detect things like falls, I left the stove on, water leaks, wandering, And all of these important things also using voice control, so you don't have to, kind of type into a little phone screen. But even more importantly, I actually really like the last presentation. And I think that it's not just about monitoring and kind of alerting and all of that, which is important, but it's seldom. What's really important is bringing the families closer together and allowing them to share in the precious moments, the photos, the videos, the music, allowing a senior to tap on an old photo and add a voice-gram to it, making it very simple and also reminding the extended family to call mom and just share a picture or give her a call, and just bringing people together to combat that loneliness, that stress, that anxiety, that feeling of isolation. So, on a personal note, I have an 82-year-old mom who has fallen 3 times, and she's actually doing great. She actually defeated cancer, and she's in great shape, but she's 82 now, and she's so important to me. I love her so much, but I don't want her to move into my house. And she loves living by herself in her own home, and if we can help people like my mom and the millions and hundreds of millions of people everywhere just be able to live in the comfort of their own home, but surrounded by their family and sharing those important things, and also reducing the stress and anxiety that comes with caregiving for this very challenging part of everyone's life, we can really make a difference. My company has actually signed commercial deals with some of the largest service providers on the planet. So we have a great go-to-market strategy. Just to preempt a few questions. We are working with the largest service provider in the world is China Mobile, our customer. We just launched our home security service with Florida Power & Light, one of the largest utilities in the country. And the guy at Florida Power & Light, he says, Florida is God's waiting room. Very excited about this product. So we are not only doing energy management, where we can turn stuff off in your home automatically, we're not only doing home security, commercially available, low cost, works fantastic, but together, and working with some of you in this room, if you vote for us, we can really make a difference in one of the ways that we can use technology without requiring the senior to be technical. Thank you very much.
Hi, Gene. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious. If I open up my parents' or my aunt's household to People Power, how are you safeguarding that information, and what's available to others, or how can I then use it to leverage it for others?
Great question. I will say that we do intend, with this $4.8 million, to become HIPAA compliant. We are currently EU GDPR compliant. So we really are a privacy fanatic. We want to be way safer than Facebook. We do not think Facebook is the right model. We have this concept of trusted circle. We also have this concept of the user owns their own data. We are data custodians, but it is our responsibility as the data custodians to really make it super secure. We're going to go through that whole hassle of HIPAA compliance. And we're also enforcing that as we work with service providers. So we're very keen on differentiating between what we're offering and what the Googles and Amazons of the world do, not because they're evil, but because their business is advertising. Their business is selling data. Our business is not. So our business is, we have a great business model. We've worked on it for 9 years, so this is my 5th startup. I'm a 4-time CEO. I actually understand that to stay in business, you need to be able to make money. And our business is to sign up some of the largest service providers and share in the monthly service fees. But keep those service fees way lower. For example, we're about 1/3, our home security system is about 1/3 the price of ADT, and it's a better product. And with our small share of that revenue, we do great, because we can leverage to millions of their customers. They make lots of money, and we share in that profit. Yeah.
Genie, right? And am I the only one who thinks the picture in the upper right looks like Mommy Dearest or Baby Jane? No? Right? What's up with that?
Yeah.
So, 2 years from now, what are people going to be saying about People Power?
You know, my last company, we were the most popular, most widely used mobile phone device management software. We were in 300 million phones. Maybe not in 2 years, but I would like to be helping millions of families through our partnerships with large service providers just improve their quality of life and basically have an easier time caring for persons with dementia or other cancers and so on. I expect us to make a meaningful difference in millions of people's lives, as well as bring them closer together, as well as, you know, we are already, with our current product, we are already helping seniors who maybe have wandered off or have some kind of like stove fire or this kind of thing. And every week we get these great stories of users who love what we've already shipped. And I think with a CARE product, we will really be able to make a difference.
Can you just describe what this CARE product looks and feels like? What is it that you're delivering?
So right in back there, you can see that we connect with things like window door sensors, water leak detectors, motion detectors. We are the company that offers a free app that turns your old smartphone into a free video camera with built-in motion detection and video alerts for free. We'll be doing a similar free app. So one thing is we start free, and then we upsell the people who really like it to paid services, but we start free. And we support a huge range of devices such as light bulbs, thermostats, smart plugs, Alexa, Google Home for voice control. We support a wide range of devices, but we add the cloud software and the mobile apps to control it. So we're a smart home company, and we're turning our sites. And I do want to say that we are working with UC Berkeley's Professor Bob Levinson, who was just inducted to the American Association for Arts and Sciences this year, along with other people like Barack Obama. He is a brilliant scientist, runs one of the largest labs on aging, and with his leadership, we're going to be really honing in, deploying to about 80 homes. And, you know, I'm sincerely offering, you know, if you want to email caretrial@peoplepowerco.com, we'd like to, you know, work with some people around here too.
Hey, thank you for the passion in your presentation. Can you describe to me, I'm still a little bit confused about the use case of this. I haven't had a chance to go to your booth.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so, you know, I personally will say that the use case that I personally need is stove monitoring, because I personally have, within the last year, probably left the stove on 3 times. My wife's getting really tired of it. And so one use case is you put temperature sensor on your stove, and then, as Alex back there can show you, we will text you if it looks like you've left the stove on too long. We do sell hardware. We don't make hardware. We actually, if you go to myplace.com, for example, you can see the Florida Power and Light system, where we sell a kit with a gateway, window sensor, motion detector, water leak detectors, things like that. And it's do-it-yourself install. And then we have been using it for home security. Is somebody breaking into my house? And in a way, what we're doing is we're turning the sensors around and saying, gee, Mom, she wandered out of the house and she didn't come back. Or she went to the bathroom and she has been there for 5 hours. And another story, which it's hard to even say, is one of my relatives, Amma, just went to the bathroom, fell, and she was stuck there for 5 hours. And we need smart home. Your home should be protecting you against things like that. Your home should basically be, first of all, we need to protect your privacy. But with that, your home should be smart enough so that if Mom went to bed at 9 p.m. as usual, but she didn't come out of bed, something's wrong, an alert. So we use text alerts. We also do voice alerts. So another example is water leak.
I think we're really short on time, so I'll ask a real quick question because I want to get one.
Sure.
Who does the install?
Very good question. Who does the install? So our system will go through 2 phases. One is UC Berkeley students will actually do we'll do all. So first of all, the senior will never do the install, even though it's very easy. But I know my mother; she can never do this. So the UC Berkeley students will be doing most of the installs, except if they're around here, in which case Alex and Marguerite will probably do a lot of them. The second phase, though, is we're going to be going through our service provider partners who do professional installation. And that there is an extra $150 charge for that, but through the $4.8 million grant, we'll be able to do a lot of stuff for free. So we're not expecting the senior to ever have to install.
Thank you. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you so much.
All right, while we do some other business here real quick, I think Mick wants to say a word. I'm going to set up the table a bit before we go, right? By applause, we had 4 pitches, and I want to thank you guys for the pitches, and I also want to thank the panel. By applause, we had Dual Jet Marine. Give us applause for the winner of the pitch panel. All right, and then we had Mason Finance. And then we had Memory Well, J.H. Newton Small. And then we had the open pandering from Gene, and that would be People Power Co. Oh, we have a winner. I think it's J. Newton Small, Memory Well. She gets the priceless award. Anyways, hey, so a couple plugs, right? David Jaffe is a lecturer at Stanford. He's always looking for ideas. This whole conference has been about shaping future technology, shaping ideas. He is actively looking for ideas for his students to work on. Collect a flyer up front at the front desk, and unfortunately he had to leave earlier. And then there's also, if you guys had so much fun here, right? There's the the Boomer Conference coming up in a week in Berkeley, and you can find that information there. While we get everything ready for the prizes, I'm going to ask my daughters and Karen to come up here. Mitch is going to say a word or two. Come on, Mick.
Hi, thanks for coming. I'm Mick Fitzgerald. I'm the ambassador for Aging 2.0, the Palo Alto chapter. I'm here representing Aging 2.0 and myself. We are feeling the effects of global population deceleration. thriving in this community depends on taking the opportunity to adapt and invent connected technology responses to the grand challenges of aging. Avanitas Generations Lab is no accident of geography. It is a collaborative action by people who are part of this local community, who recognize and are acting on their responsibilities as people to help innovate technology for the entire global community. The members of Aging 2.0 are members of that community. On behalf of Aging 2.0 and myself, I want to thank AGL for hosting and organizing this event. Thank you for attending. All of the chapter proceeds from this event are going to Avanitas Generations Lab. You are all invited to collaborate with us. If you're interested, just ask. Thank you, Eric, and thank Avanitas for a wonderful event.